It's 7 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. The records show that council members Geringer and Kwok, Vice Mayor Dawson, and Mayor Andrea are present. Council member Kendall will not be able to be with us this evening. Do I have a motion for adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Kwok, seconded by Councilmember Geringer. Councilmember Geringer.
Aye.
Councilmember Kwok.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dawson.
Aye.
I'm an aye, so it's 4-0 with one absence. Public comments. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public to address the council on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. So it's a wide open field for comment. And you will have 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to address the council?
If any member of the public would like to address the city council at this time, please raise your virtual hand and we will bring you into the meeting. Mayor, I see no hands raised.
Okay, we'll go on to item 5A, and I'll turn it over to our Administrative Services Director, Tracy.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just briefly summarize the item. At the end of 2016, the city entered into a lease for 3471 Mount Diablo Boulevard. We moved our police operations there. It is effectively our police station. The terms of that lease dictate that the city now has an option to purchase that property. The price of the property, the calculation for setting that price was determined as part of that lease. And the price as of today is roughly $1.66 million. The city invested in some upgrades to that building so that it could function as a police station. That upgrade cost approximately $2 million. I do have 2 additional pieces of information that I'd like to share with you now. The first is that we got a very quick valuation on that property just based on a few comps. So based on those comps, the price of roughly $1.67 million is definitely within the values that we've seen from sale prices on properties, both from a price for the square footage of the building and a price per square foot of land. It's right in the middle. From an income approach, which would be looking as that asset as an investment property, we arrive at a value of roughly $1.7 million. So the price that we would be paying for this is absolutely in line with the current market. Second piece of information is if the city would like to finance this property for 30 years. What happened to it? I think I did get a very rough calculation from our banker, and shoot, I lost it. But basically from my memory, if we were to finance this, we have a AAA bond rating. Interest rates for that are roughly around 3.5% to 4%. On 30 years, that would cost us $96,000 a year, and that compares very favorably with the price that we are currently paying for rent is roughly $136,000 per year. So if we financed it for 30 years, there would be some savings on that. I'm just trying to pull this up again. I accidentally. Here it is. I'm sorry. I accidentally closed the wrong. Yeah, so the rate is roughly 3.5%. Debt service is about actually $90,000 a year. It varies slightly from year to year, but about 90,000, and that's on a 30-year loan. So I'm guessing that even at 20 years, which I do not have, would still probably be less than the rent that we are currently paying. So that is a summary of my comments, and I will take any questions.
Okay, we'll start with questions from the council, then we'll go to the public, and then we'll come back for comments and discussion. So are there any questions for Tracy? Okay, I'll just ask one. You mentioned 90,000 for the financing costs, and we're paying rent of 136,000. But once we buy it, we'll be responsible for utilities, right?
We're responsible for utilities now.
Oh, okay, so it's really okay.
Really, that we're responsible for almost everything at that building at this point, utilities. We have been doing maintenance on that property as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilmember Quack.
Thank you for the report. Just a question on the financing, just the timing of things. Given that we have to purchase the property within a certain amount of days, and would it be correct to say that the city would purchase the property using cash right now, but then we would set up the financing in the months ahead, and at some future date we would talk about whether 20 or 30-year mortgage type of situation? But the sequencing is that it's a cash purchase up front and then converting it to a financing situation?
Yes, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked. That's exactly how we would do it. In order to accomplish a financing actually after the purchase, the council does have to adopt a resolution that basically allows the council to do that financing after the fact. And if the council does indeed decide that they want to go forward with this purchase, I could bring forward that resolution that would allow the council to do it after the fact. I believe that the close is about 120 days. Seems like a long time, but for a financing, I would like to have that time, like you said, to engage a banker, to look at our different options. So I could bring that resolution back to the council on consent or on open session at the next council meeting.
Okay, just to be clear, we need to adopt that resolution before we take title to the property in order to be able in the future to finance the property. Okay, so then the question is, how long do we have after we take title of the property to finance? Is there a finite period of time that?
There's a finite, I believe there's a finite period of time, but it is a long enough period of time to allow us to accomplish that transaction.
And does that, whatever that time period is, does that start with our taking title of the property?
I'm just gonna look really close. I'm gonna look here and see. So it's a reimbursement resolution. It says the reimbursement resolutions are a federal tax law document that allow us to reimburse expenditure with tax exempt dollars. The general rules that you can only look back 60 days from the date of adoption, and then generally you have 18 months from the later of the date the expenditure is made or the date the property is placed in service. So for our purposes, we would have 18 months from the date the expenditure is made. So that would be from the date that escrow closes, because it's already been put into service.
Okay, that's
And only one other caveat here. says the IRS also generally doesn't like it if you adopt reimbursement resolutions, but then don't reimburse expenditures. So there's some value in being reasonably sure that you intend to issue bonds if you do a reimbursement resolution.
Okay, so we can wait to adopt that until we purchase, right? I mean, we have 120 days then to decide.
The general rules are that you can only look back 60 days from the date of adoption for reimbursable expenditures.
Okay,
So look
So-
back 60 days from the date of the adoption, and then generally you have 18 months.
okay, is that saying we can wait? The money goes out on closing, we have 60 days after that? Because we
To
can.
to adopt the reimbursement resolution. I can clarify that.
Okay, I mean, we don't need to decide that
You
tonight.
don't need to decide that tonight. You probably don't even need to decide that at the next meeting.
Right,
So I will clarify what they mean by look back 60 days from the date of
Okay.
adoption.
and we can discuss the timing more when you get into our comment period. Are there any other questions at this point? Councilmember Garinger.
So this is going to be very into the weeds, but I want to understand on the master list, sort of where we are with this base rate reimbursement. And it may be that I don't fully understand how that works, but in one of the sections of the option to purchase, it lays out the option purchase price, then it lays out how it goes up the various amounts over the course of time. And then there is section 11.4, which talks about a reimbursement to the tenant if the tenant elects to exercise the option shall be reimbursed for some base route. So is that taken into account in the
Yes.
purchase price that
Correct.
you're doing? Thank
Yes.
you. And then what about the security deposit?
That's also
Thank
taken into account in the
you.
price.
Thank you. And I'm sorry if I missed that in our.
No, that's that's how we came to the calculation of the purchase price. We
Thank you.
calculated all that. We will obviously, once we say we're going to exercise the option, we're gonna obviously look at those numbers again and ensure that the seller is in agreement with those.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we go to public comment? Okay, so we'll open it for public comment. If there's anyone in the public who would like to address the council on this topic, you'll have 3 minutes to do so.
Members of the public, if you wish to speak now, use the icon at the bottom of your screen, the raised hand feature, and we will promote you into the meeting. Mayor, there are no hands raised at this moment.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it back to the council. Are there any further questions or comments? Councilmember Garinger.
Yeah, I don't have additional questions. I think that, first of all, thank you to staff for the well-written staff report, and it was very interesting to sort of be refreshed about the process for getting the building and the people the various families and parties that were involved in that. So I personally think that this is an important thing to do. I don't think that we, with the investment that we have made in improvements in the property and where it's located, all the things that are noted in the staff report, and then the where we are with our rents now, and the fact that I know there's a term for this, but right now it's escaping me. But I think that fiscally, it is a good decision for us to move forward with that, and I would support it.
Vice Mayor Dawson.
I agree with Councilmember Geringer. I think it's the right thing to do now, especially keeping the flow of the work of the police department, intact. And fiscally, it seems responsible since we've made this prior investment. So I don't know, Councilmember Geringer, if you were making a movement.
I'm happy to do that, but I wanted to allow everyone to have the discussion time if there were additional comments, but if it's the will of everyone else, I'm happy to make a motion, but go ahead, Mayor.
Well, let's just-
Sorry, Mayor.
We'll come back to you on that. Councilmember Kwok, do you have anything?
I would be in support of executing the option to purchase this property. It was clearly contemplated and well thought out in 2016 and given a good structure. I sort of assess what has happened since then, and that place has been a positive location for our police department. They have settled in there and built it out very well. And so it does make sense to continue long term in that location, just from a site for our police centrally located. And in addition, thanks to Tracy's report about the financing of it moving forward, we can actually finance this at a lesser cost than the actual monthly more rent we're paying today. So I think financially it's also positive. So I think on both counts, it's well worth acquiring the property and financing it at a later stage.
Yep. Okay. I take the point on the comparison to the rent to the financing costs. I still think another comparison would be a comparison between what we'd be paying in financing costs and what return we receive on our monies in the general fund, recognizing that we have a couple of other possibilities for outflows. And if we do purchase the other properties, then we probably will need to finance. But I'm heartened to hear that we can wait a while and see what happens before we need to make a decision as to whether we finance this property. Okay, Councilmember Geringer, I turn to you for a motion.
Okay, so I move that the city council authorize staff to exercise the option and close escrow on the property at 3471 Mount Diablo Boulevard as quickly as possible is how the recommendation is written, and find it exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15061B3.
And I see a second from Vice Mayor Dawson. I just want to confirm with our city attorney that those can be combined in one motion.
Yes, they can.
Okay, great.
Thank
So
you.
we have the motion from Councilmember Geringer. We have a second from Vice Mayor Dawson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Councilmember Geringer,
Aye.
Councilmember Kwok,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dawson,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So it's 4-0 with one absence. So great. Let's move forward. Tracy, thank you very much for all the work on this. And thanks for those who, as I think Councilmember Kwok said, and I think we each said, the people in 2016 did a great job of setting this up for us. So thank you. All right. Unless anyone has anything else that can get by our city attorney to talk about, and I see none, we will adjourn. So
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. Good night, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Take care, Narup.